Welcome to What to Watch Wednesdays, hosted by someone's favorite film buff, Nathan. I love movies and I want to share that with you. From old originals to cult classics and foreign favorites, along with straight up drivel, WWW is your place for all things movies. Stick around and we'll leave you with a movie to watch over the weekend with your family or that special someone. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. 881 The Burg, your Music Central. My name is Nathan. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. So, as you guys all know, I love generic rom-coms that make you feel really happy inside. And so we're going to be reviewing them tonight. What's that? I don't love generic rom-coms? I don't like feeling happy when I watch a movie? Oh no. Tonight's movies are going to be the works of Darren Aronofsky, and if that name doesn't ring a bell, don't worry, you're not alone. But let me just give you a bit of a background here. Darren Aronofsky is a pioneer in the psychological thriller genre, so this is going to be a heavy one. We are going to take a look at 3 movies by Darren Aronofsky: Requiem for a Dream from 2000, Black Swan from 2010, and Pi from 1998. And just as a forewarning, these are all going to be intense, very intense. We are not going to have fun in the sense that the movies aren't necessarily fun to watch, but I'm going to have fun talking about them. So stick around for after the break when I have a lot of fun talking about them. 881 The Burg, your Music Central. My name is Nathan. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our first movie on the watch list tonight, we are going to be taking a look at Requiem for a Dream from 2000. So for my regular listeners, you probably noticed that I sound a lot more energetic around this time of the evening. I'm very hyped up and ready to talk about movies. There's a reason I don't sound super hyped for these ones in particular. One of the main reasons is Requiem for a Dream is a very good movie. Don't get me wrong. It is a phenomenal movie. And it's also one of the few movies that I can say confidently, I can't recommend this to the vast majority of the population. I legitimately can't. I can't in good conscience say to you, yes, I believe that you would gain something out of watching Requiem for a Dream. I think it would have a positive impact on you as a person. I think it is a very touching film that will stay with you. Only one of those things is true, and that's the fact that it stays with you. And there's a very good reason for it. So I guess to just kind of start off with the lighthearted stuff, this movie was something. It was a very funny situation how I came across the movie in the first place. I had heard about it before somewhere along the line, and I always got it mixed up with the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. That's a romantic comedy starring Jim Carrey and another famous actress. If you give me a moment, I will be looking that up while talking about Requiem for a Dream. But Requiem for a Dream, I got it mixed up with it, even though they are nothing alike. I really do like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but it's definitely not along the same thematic elements. And so when I did look it up, though, when I looked it up, I figured out what it's about, and I was like, okay, this sounds interesting. I might give it a try someday. And then I sat around for an entire week, just constantly thinking about it. It's a movie that got in my head before I even watched it. And that's ridiculous because that always happens to me. When you're a film person, you tend to just like hear of a movie and then you start thinking about it. Kate Winslet was the name of the girl in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I had to know. The point is, in Eternal Sunshine's like this too. You think of a movie and then the title just gets stuck in your brain. It lodges onto this like recognizable part of your subconscious, and it just keeps popping up and cropping up, and you're like, I haven't seen it yet. I really want to. What's it about? What's it going to be like? When am I going to watch it? And that was Requiem for a Dream. And to an extent, at the time, I couldn't stop thinking about it. That was a year ago, and I can't stop thinking about it. And that's a very massive difference there. In the beginning, it's like, oh, I can't stop thinking about this movie. I'm so excited. Now it's like, I can't stop thinking about this movie. Oh, I could go on and on about the contents of the movie, the plot, all of that, but this really does feel like a movie to kind of open up with on my What to Watch weekend show Saturday. Not even in a shameless plug sort of way. This is quite legitimately something that I'd have to spend about 30 minutes dissecting, and I can't very well in good conscience do that. But I will say, this song features this song. Wow, nice slip there. Spoiled the thing before I even said it. See, we're still having fun. The thing about this movie is it includes the song Lux Eterna by Clint Mansell, a very wonderful song, in my opinion, personally. I really like it, and I'd highly suggest looking up the song Lux Eterna. It is Latin. It means light eternal. And I believe it does mean light eternal. I know my Latin well enough to say that it does mean Lux Eterna. I know my Latin well enough, says the guy who's never studied Latin. Point is, the song Lux Eterna is a very wonderful song. It was used in a Two Towers trailer. It's a very cool thing. It's very simple, but it has a lot of symbolism and dedicates a lot to it contributes to the movie in a massive way. I should also say that the reason I'm kind of holding back is because the most difficult thing to talk about this movie is its plot, its contents. Everything that it's about is so very difficult to discuss for me personally. And just consciously, I don't think anyone could have an easy time discussing it. So I guess there's nothing to it but to rip the Band-Aid off. This movie is about, it's about a obsessive group of people, a group of 4 people whose lives are destroyed by substance usage. And when I say substance usage, you can guess what that means. It is about addicts in the very literal sense, to an extreme degree that you watch their lives become intertwined and torn apart. Everything hits the fan, and it ends in a 10-minute sequence that has haunted me since the day I watched it. This is why I had to put like such a big warning on Requiem for a Dream, because if you are sensitive or have like people in your life who have used substances in the past, I cannot in good conscience recommend you watching this movie. I cannot, like, if you want to watch it, go ahead. I do recommend it to people who don't have that kind of personal association with it. But if you do, it's a very, very difficult movie to watch, even as someone who hasn't had such a deep connection with it. And so keep that in mind. And I should also say that after all my serious ranting, I've realized this is the worst movie to start off the evening with, isn't it? But I will say it is important to kind of get through, because it is Darren Aronofsky's like kind of one of his most well-known works, aside from probably The Whale, which came out 2 years ago in 2022. And I think it is worth kind of examining. But once again, I can't very well in good conscience, like, recommend it fully at all. And I can't necessarily dive into all the deep basics without at least a good 10-minute chunk. And so I will just say, if you want to hear my actual opinions on this movie rather than just all the warnings about it, I'd highly suggest tuning into What to Watch Weekends this Saturday from 9 to 11. It sounds cheap, but quite legitimately, this movie is something that gets me excited and fills me with dread at the same time. So if you've never listened to What to Watch Weekends, I can definitely guarantee you you would have a very interesting time with your first experience being me rant about Requiem for a Dream. I'll tell you that much. So we'll just leave it there. If I've just completely confused you and now you're like, well, now I gotta watch the movie. It is available on Tubi and Pluto, 2 free streaming services. I do recommend it if you look into it and you realize, hey, I think I could handle this. If not, I don't recommend it. If there's even a sliver of a chance that you can't handle this, don't watch it. So, wow. Really unraveling the show there, Nathan, talking about a movie that you shouldn't watch. This is called What to Watch Wednesdays. Don't worry. Our next movie, Black Swan, after the break, will be a movie that I will recommend. This is a very great way to subvert the expectations. Second movie into the winter quarter and you're already telling people don't watch things. Wonderful, wonderful. Stick around after the break. I will not be this serious for the entire night. 88.1 The Burg, your Music Central. My name is Nathan. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our second movie on the watch list tonight, we will be taking a look at Black Swan from 2010. So, I gotta say, I know that it's a bit difficult to kind of jump from, here's a movie that I really like, I don't recommend it at all, to another movie? What are you doing? What are you doing? Go back to the one where you said don't watch it. What are you talking about? No. Quite legitimately, Requiem for the Dream, for the Dream, wow. For a Dream, Requiem for a Dream, is a movie that I kind of have to talk about tonight, mostly because the other two movies are by the same director, Darren Aronofsky, and to really kind of dive into them, I wanted to set the baseline of, here's the kind of movie that this guy can make if he's kind of let off the rails. And so let's talk about his tamer stuff after this, because I'm basically front-loading you with all the difficult stuff, and then we can kind of jump into the tamer stuff. Black Swan specifically is not necessarily an easy movie to watch, but it's a lot easier to watch than Requiem for a Dream, and it doesn't really stay with you as long as Requiem for a Dream, because it's been a year since I saw Requiem for a Dream, and I still can't stop thinking about it. Whereas this one, I saw it rather recently, and it's not in my head too much. Just the scary parts. So that's good. I think I should just kind of dive into this one. The main plot of this movie, wow, talking about plots after he just avoided the plot of Requiem for a Dream. This is such a revolutionary show. Listen, here's the point. The plot of Black Swan is, it's about Natalie Portman playing a girl named Nina, who is a ballerina who wants to become the White Swan and the Black Swan in Swan Lake. It's a ballet. Isn't that a lovely little story? How is this scary? Oh, you have no idea. Everything hits the fan after the first 20 minutes. Natalie Portman goes in. She's like, I want to be the Swan. She's perfect. Everyone loves her. The director's like, sure, you can be the White and the Black Swan. And she's like, I love you, Mom. I got the part. And it's like, yay, sweetie, I'm so happy for you. Everything hits the fan after that. Quite literally, everything folds in on itself. It then transforms into a very upsetting and scary movie that will mess with your head indefinitely. Have fun with that. Quite legitimately, like I said, this is a much easier movie to talk about and watch than Requiem for a Dream. That doesn't mean it's an easy movie to watch. Just because I'd recommend it more doesn't mean okay, going from not recommending something to saying I recommend this one just a little bit more, it's very much an out of the frying pan into the fire scenario where it's like, if you had to choose, you should probably watch Black Swan, but it's not necessarily going to be an easy watching experience. I don't want to think about it too much lest my brain hurt. Let's just start off with the fact that this movie's tagline is a lie. Oh, isn't that very silly and goofy? This movie, the tagline that you find on Google is completely wrong. It is not at all a representation of what the movie is. Isn't that funny and wild? Bet you didn't see that one coming. Okay. Look, here's the problem with this kind of movie, and that's the fact that it's very good at what it's trying to do. Now, normally that wouldn't be a problem at all, but when your movie is about a very difficult topic or just a very upsetting topic, it can be an issue in the fact that it sticks with you. This is not unheard of. This is not new. This is not revolutionary. What I'm saying here, this is well known. And it's not necessarily like that should excuse it or just kind of put it off to the side, but it doesn't necessarily make it easier by any stretch of the imagination. And so I think I can get away with talking about that aspect. of Darren Aronofsky, is that as his movies can be difficult, and they are good, but only if you're up for the challenge of watching them. Black Swan is, at its core, a movie about the loss of innocence in a world that doesn't care at all. While there are different topics that it sort of hovers around, certain things that are also quite difficult, like very weird parental relationships. Her ballet instructor is a very creepy person who is very, very much unwanted attention giving to her. That's a good way of describing it. He provides unwanted attention to her in many different ways. It's also a lot about her perfectionism and her inability to sort of cope with her insecurities. It's very much a movie about a lot of different things, but at its core, it is very much about Natalie Portman's character, Nina, losing her innocence in a world that doesn't seem to care and can't necessarily help her. And on paper, that does sound like a very upsetting topic and very sad. It's like, why would you watch a movie about that? That's sad. Why would you make a movie about that? I will say there is a small shred of hope in this movie, in the fact that in comparison to Requiem for a Dream, one thing I can say about it is that it is about like nobody getting help ever at all. Like, it is the final bell for all the characters by the end of that movie. It's not necessarily a spoiler because oof. But in this movie, there is the at least assumption that you can hope that Nina would actually get help had she been in a position to ask for help. And that to me is kind of the important part, that as difficult as a certain type of movie can be, there is sometimes hope in the darkest places. This movie does exemplify that because, like I said, it's about Swan Lake, a very classic ballet, and it does use feathers in its credit scene. This isn't a spoiler at all, but I think one thing that I'm always thinking about is the imagery they use over the credits, which is a sea of white feathers and then a single black feather, and then eventually it turns into a sea of black feathers and a singular white feather, and that to me does kind of speak volumes to the impact of a very difficult movie, and that there is still hope somewhere out there. You just got to look for it. I didn't realize that I would talk about philosophical emptiness during these reviews. I will try to amp it up with the silly movie at the end of this session, which will be Pi from 1998. Before I do, I should say that Black Swan is available to watch on Netflix. If you want to see what I'm talking about when it comes to the credit scene, recommend it. It is leaving by the end of the month, so if you want to see it and you've heard about it, highly recommend it. Stick around until after the break. 88.1 The Burg, your Music Central. My name is Nathan. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our last movie on the watch list, we will be taking a look at Pi from 1998. Before we do, I should say, this movie, I'm going to tone it up. I'm going to lighten things up a little bit. The tone's not going to be as overbearingly upsetting as the last two reviews because I don't have the capacity for it. You guys probably don't. So don't worry. I'm not going to harp on about doom and gloom for the review of Pi. Don't worry about it. This is the first Aronofsky movie ever. It's also the first Aronofsky movie that I've seen. Hey, that's a nice coincidence there. This is the movie that kind of got me into Darren Aronofsky's work. I wouldn't have watched Requiem for a Dream without it. And I should say that this movie was something that it was also a movie that I wanted to review. I tried reviewing very early on, very much in the beginning stages of What to Watch Wednesdays. I was kind of in the training process, and I tried reviewing this movie, and the review didn't turn out so good. But I get a chance to redo it. So let's jump into this. This movie should not have worked at all. This movie should not have worked, and it did. How? How did they make it work? I am confused. The basic premise of this movie is about a mathematician finding a new secret hidden number. And uh, just describing that sounds so boring. That sounds so boring. That should not work as a movie concept at all. When I read it, I was like, no, that's not the plot of the thing. What are you talking about? No, that is not the plot. That is not the plot. You are messing with me, man. You are messing with me. No, it's the actual plot, and it works. How? But to get into how, part of the reason this movie does work is because they treat the premise with such an amount of seriousness, if that's a word. Wow, good English there. They treat it with a level of sincerity, and they also add in stuff aside from the premise to really get you hooked into the movie. So, for example, the biggest kind of compliment I can give this movie is that it's got a very heavy sense of atmosphere. The mathematician's name, the main character's name, is Max, and Max is a very, not necessarily an unlikable character, but he's very much an isolated character. He's not one who reaches out easily. He's very just sort of left alone in his environment. And somehow they managed to make New York feel lonely. How do you do that? That's insane. Quite literally, Max lives in some area of New York, and it still feels very lonely and empty. He only has like a friend or two, and just kind of hangs around by himself doing absolutely nothing, to the point where it's like, what are you doing with your life? You're just sitting around doing math problems. And what makes that environment feel all the more lonelier is just the sense of, I guess, uncertainty, very much overbearing claustrophobia, and very much a close focus on his day-to-day life, focusing on him taking headache pills just to kind of relieve himself of the stress of working all the time, basically working himself half to death. Remember how I said this movie was entertaining? I wasn't lying. It's entertaining compared to Requiem for a Dream, that's for sure. Let me just say, the music and the sound effects when Max is just alone in his apartment are phenomenal. They contribute to a very heavy sense of overbearing uncertainty in the air, and it really works. I should also say that the camera work, what with him being like shown in close-ups and just kind of shrinking down the space to only fit part of the frame, really does work. It is also accentuated by the fact that it's shot in black and white with very harsh like lighting differences. And so like everything that's white is like way too white, and everything that is black is way too black. Like in terms of coloring, if you look at pictures of this movie, it like your eyes will like start to figuratively burn. Not actually, but it looks very, very unique in a good and bad way. Bad in the sense that like sometimes you quite literally can't see what's going on. Good in the way that it's like very visually unique, even for an independent movie shot on black and white film. And so props for that. I should also say that what with the exaggerated lighting, shooting it in black and white was the best decision. If you were going to go for this kind of harsh lighting contrast, doing it in black and white is the only way to go. One of the biggest things about this movie is that it is about a mathematician finding this secret number, and that is a dumb concept, but they put enough effort into the plot and the storytelling and everything else that I've just mentioned to make it seem interesting. And it is. And then there's the big plot twist of what this number actually means. What does it do? What is this number's significance? And if this movie was not a psychological thriller, which it is, it very much is a psychological thriller, I would have burst out laughing had I heard the big plot twist of this movie out of context. That's how insane it is. Like, it is a bonkers idea for a movie to begin with, but then the big plot twist comes in and it's like, okay, somehow this got more bonkers than it already was. This shouldn't be working as well as it is. I should not be as interested in the direction of the plot after this big twist as I currently am. And yet I don't have any really bad things to say about Pi. Like I said, the main character Max is not necessarily unlikable. He's just isolated. The harsh lighting, sometimes you can't tell what's going on, but that's to create uncertainty. The black and white stuff, it works for what they're trying to do stylistically, and like I said, it is a psychological thriller. The big twist only doesn't work if it was like a goofy comedy thing, and even then, it would work. Like, this would work as a comedic thing, but since it's a psychological thriller, it has the good like duality of, if you're taking it seriously, like, okay, I'm in it. If you're not taking it seriously, okay, I'm in it. It works. It works. Pi works. And that's the best thing I could say about Darren Aronofsky, is that all the movies I've talked about work. It's just that two of them are very difficult to recommend to people because of their, frankly, very disturbing content, just especially Requiem for a Dream. If you were going to watch any Darren Aronofsky movie, I would recommend watching Pi, just because it's so much easier to kind of get into in comparison to a movie about people whose lives are destroyed by the use of pharmaceuticals. This one is just leagues easier to get into. And that's really all I've got. To really kind of unwrap my thoughts on Requiem for a Dream, I am going to be talking about it on my weekend show, What to Watch Weekends, this Saturday from 9 to 11 a.m., just to clear that up. For those of you who are interested, I do have an Instagram account at What to Watch Wednesdays, all one word. Highly recommend checking that out. You can actually read like a text review where I actually review Black Swan and Requiem for a Dream. Not that I didn't review it, it's just like, you'll get the actual plot sort of summary of it, rather than me just kind of talking about existential dread. So I'd recommend checking that out. And with that, that's all I've really got for tonight's show. So thank you for listening, and I will see you next week on What to Watch Wednesdays.